Board will continue to use taxpayer money on a lawyer while discussions surrounding the possibility of a CO2 pipeline continue. So for the last year, a company called Navigator has tried to gain ground on installing a pipeline that would cross through a portion of the Midwest, but to no avail. Since first hiring a lawyer last year, the board chair says they've spent more than $60,000 on representation, but he says it's something the board thinks the people want.
We believe after last month's meeting that we had with the taxpayer that they wanted us to continue. Right now, we're talking about how far we would like the setbacks to be, and it's just not Hancock County, it's several counties involved in this.
The pipeline would also cross through Schuyler and McDonough counties as well as Lee County.